Fantasy Edge with Richard Savill and Dennis Sosick.
Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Edge. I am Richard Savill of FantasySixPack.net. Joining me shortly, Davis Peng, also of FantasySixPack.net. Dennis is off this week. He's going to Disneyland, so he's off this week. But this week on the Fantasy Edge, we are going to be discussing a little bit about your Week 14 waivers. And Davis, since he's here, Peng's picks will be, well, it'll be live, actually. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Davis. Yeah, Davis, great to have you on the show as the backup. Dennis it's great, and we always love your Peng's picks, but you're live this week, and so how are things going with your fantasy season? Making the playoffs here and there, or well, actually, you play a lot of best ball, though, don't you?
I do a lot of best ball. Yeah, I mean, I like being here for Dennis's place. Davis, Dennis, Davis. It goes fluid. It's like the same. You just don't know.
Yeah, well, it just screws me up. I get brain farts, and then I might accidentally call you Dennis. So I don't think so.
It's all right. It's all the same overall. Most of our letters are the same. My playoffs are going pretty good. I have one team that's sealed, and they're playing to get the bye today. This is my main home league, and I got a couple that I'm helping other people with, and they all have already pronounced to be playoffs. I'm actually having one of the higher advance rates. I actually have one of the best advance rates right now, I think, in the best ball community. I think there's only like a few people ahead of me that I can, off the top of my head, that are just way ahead of me. But the rest, I'm ahead of the BBM1's champion, Justin Herzig. I have more teams advancing than his do as of right now. I have more than Spike Week advancing right now, and I have more than a few other big name guys, which is pretty surprising.
Are there best ball leagues? How deep can some best ball? I guess you could go as deep as you want with best ball leagues, can you?
It's best ball leagues are all a little bit different, but we all do tournament championship plays. So RTS Sports, which is a big partnership to the show and the Fantasy Six Pack. I'm actually ranked right now 100. The top 100 on this year's championship out of 4 teams that I entered. Right. And there's like 10,000 teams or something, and I'm like number 100. I'm 101, I think, on the dot. So, I'm flying up the rankings. Number 1 gets 25,000. Everybody else gets a little bit less or a lot less, but I'm up there right now on that one. And then, for Underdog, which I mostly play on too, I have a lot. It's all just leagues that enter rounds. We're going to go into playoffs next week, like everybody else is. Once we get week 14 done, we go into playoffs. My advance rates right now are about 30%, which the average is about 16 or less. So I'm about double the advance rate of the average player. And the average advance rate right now for someone in the higher, community type people is about 23%.
All right.
So I'm
show today is crowded, so we must move quick.
Right. The show today is crowded today. Sorry for cutting you a little bit, but we got to get on with the show. We got to talk about some news and
injury.
Yeah. Top of the news, a lot of injuries this weekend. Cortland Sutton day-to-day with hamstring injury. Do we care much about the the Denver Broncos?
I think you have to. I mean, Cortland Sutton, as much as he's not been great, he's actually still been kind of fantasy relevant. You're talking about half PPR. Half PPR standard or full. I mean, he was getting 5 for 80. That's fantasy serviceable. That's 13 points, about a touchdown. Full PPR. I do think that hurts, especially because that's a flex play on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any interest in Kendall Hinton?
What was it? What was the question?
Kendall Hinton. Any interest in Kendall Hinton?
No. I want nothing to do with any other Bronco that's not Dulcich and maybe Judy.
All right.
Injury.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs as a limited participant in their Monday practice report, turning out to be a really, I think you talked about him in your last Peng's picks that, he's one of these, I guess, what were you saying? Dead zone?
Dead zone running back.
Yeah.
Which I didn't explain it too well, which basically the concept was dead zone running backs are dead zones because the wide receivers and quarterbacks in their draft realm will outproduce them as a whole. That's always been the idea and the concept, and I never subscribed to that. I don't think you can say that a wide receiver position is always going to do better than a running back in the 4th round or 5th round.
Yeah, it's sort of shifting towards, I guess, a hybrid. It's not totally zero RB. Our thinking is it's more like kind of half zero IPRB. More like a
They call that hero running back. So it's hero RB.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with, I think you do draft a top level running back. I mean, Derrick Henry, he can't do any harm for your team, really, unless he gets injured. I like any other running back. So, but I tend to think you're right, like, overlooking these running backs that are down the board, which Josh Jacobs was. I mean, you can get a good running back with, and pick up all these good, juicy wide receivers, which are, at a premium when the season wears on. I think you're completely right about that.
I think the biggest thing was just knowing that our dead zone running backs aren't the same as the past. Knowing that these guys are like younger, and you can't assume wide receivers are just going to perform. Wide receivers are probably one of the most inconsistent positions, not tight end. One week you get 15, the next week you get 2, Running backs at least generally get some touches. They're almost guaranteed touches weekly. Yeah. And I think that's a hard price to not pay for. You go every week and you say, I know at the very least Josh Jacobs gets 50 touches. I don't think Josh Jacobs was going to do what he did this year, but you can almost guarantee about 1,000 to 1,200 total yards from scrimmage, 8 touchdowns, right? I can't guarantee that for many receivers. Full PPR, a little bit different story, but for half PPR and standard, that's value.
Moving right along, Mike White will start week 14 against the Bills. What's your early report card on Mike White?
I like him, man. I didn't want to get on the hype wagon or hype train for this guy, but he's entertaining. He's the most entertaining thing we've seen since probably Jets playing Fitzpatrick. That's probably the last time I've been entertained to watch the Jets.
Yeah. Apart from butt fumbles from from Mark Sanchez,
Quarterback. But, Mike White's interesting. He makes fantasy good. He had 2 fantasy relevant players yesterday. He had Corey Davis, one of my favorite guys out there right now, and then Garrett Wilson. Yeah, God.
Speaking of Jets, and you can former Jets Geno Smith. He's a star in the league right now. I mean, he's a guy you want on your fantasy team. Is for the playoffs, he's solid looking right now. So.
Tyler Lockett has been that team. Tyler Lockett and Metcalf currently wide receiver 7 and 9 and half PPR through from weeks 3 to now, and that's including DK Metcalf taking a week off from an injury, got injured mid game. He's still wide receiver 9.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, and Lockett's wide receiver 7 or something like that.
Injury.
Hayden Hurst, doubtful for week 14. I had some hopes for Hayden Hurst. He's actually on one of my fantasy teams, and now that he's doubtful, I'm going to have to find a replacement. So I'm going to have to look when we get to the waivers. I'm going to be looking on that waiver board for somebody to pick up. So we'll see what the fantasy experts have for that. But kind of a big loss. He was coming on, Davis.
I like Hayden Hurst. I think he's a better player than he is fantasy. That's how I've always treated him. A guy that could just randomly get an end zone. He's never been peppered. No. So I don't know if this is a huge loss, but if you were someone that was streaming tight end, this is one less option for you.
Yeah. Which I sort of was. I mean, I was sort of going back and forth between him and Evan Ingram, on my fantasy team. But now that Hurst is out, and I actually dropped Evan Ingram like an idiot, but never mind. We'll move on to more injuries. Yeah.
Injury.
Yeah, Joe Mixon. He has a chance to clear the concussion protocol. I thought he would do it this week. Some concussion protocols seem to last longer than others, but I don't know. Samaje Perine filled in, and he filled in like a Madison. He's actually quite good. They're interchangeable now, I'd say. You've got Samaje Perine has to be owned for the rest of the way now.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I've never been a Perine guy. I always thought he was a little slow. I forgot what he was, a commander, I believe. He never looked too good to me when he was a commander. Maybe he just got better. It happens. Maybe he just needed shorter stints. But
offensive line, things of that nature.
And he's a good pass catcher. Perine is very underrated when it comes to that. So props to him. My only thing for him is that if you have Joe Mixon, I would not be surprised if you start to see Joe Mixon have less touches to save for the playoffs.
That's a very astute observation. That Yeah, because that's one thing about fantasy playoffs. It's the nature of the beast. Fantasy playoffs happens near the end of the year. Teams that are in contention, they want to sort of do a little bit of preservation here and there. And that's for teams that are out of it as well. They kind of want to, they won't want to have their stars if they're out of it. They don't want their stars getting, being injured in the off season. So that's, it's just the way it is. So
it's just smart club. I mean, players like to remind us, but they don't give a crap about our fantasy teams.
They don't.
And neither do coaches. So we need to think like them more often than the other way around.
Injury.
Lamar Jackson, one of the big stories, unlikely to play in Week 14 against the Steelers. I think Tyler Huntley's the best backup in the NFL.
No, I would disagree. I'm a Purdy guy. I'm all about Purdy.
All right, okay. You think he's better than Tyler Huntley?
No, I just kid.
I thought so. I got to take your word for it. I mean, you might know something that I don't.
Honestly, I would probably go with Mike White. I think Mike White's probably one of the better backups right now.
Mm-hmm.
He gets touchdowns. He's making plays. I would blame the weapons more on the Ravens, but Mike White's producing, and that alone will make him probably the better ones. And Jacoby Brissett has changed my mind on him too. I think Jacoby Brissett is working his way into talks about being a very, very good full career backup for the rest of his career.
Mm. Baker Mayfield, I have it down here as Panthers are expected to waive. I believe he has already been waived, Baker Mayfield, so he's on waivers. So I don't expect anyone. I think he'll clear waivers and he'll just become a free agent and get picked up unless.
Yeah, he's not good.
No,
I don't know why anybody would want him.
No, I think there's a 1.5 million price tag you got to pick up with him if a team does make the claim. So I think he'll go unclaimed. I'm pretty sure.
There's no situation where you can pick up Baker Mayfield and it helps the team. There's no team that's like needing a quarterback that isn't the 49ers.
Yeah.
And the 49ers, I don't even know if it helps their locker room to bring this guy in.
No, I don't think it does either. Tua, I guess
injury.
I guess he is injury. Yeah, Tua was injured, but they expect him to start in Week 14 against the Chargers. So no problem there. Jimmy Garoppolo, which we just alluded to. Let's talk about this a bit. Brock Purdy obviously will, by default, have the starting job now. The third quarterback.
I was at the game for this, actually, and it was bad. I mean, you can see the footage for it.
Yeah.
He gets rolled. It was bad.
It was, yeah. Definitely bad. So you get Baker Mayfield. Should they get Baker Mayfield as a backup? I mean, is that urgent for them, or is there anybody else out there?
I can think of about 20 to 30 different quarterbacks I'd call before I call Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I got a list of quarterbacks that are available in free agencies. I would say more than half of them I don't know. Way more than half of these quarterbacks that are in free agency I've never heard of, but.
I would literally call Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think they call Josh Johnson, which is great. I would just call anybody. There's realistically no reason to bring Baker.
Bortles.
Absolute head case.
Blake Bortles, he retired though too.
I'm sure he can unretire. I mean, AP unretired, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd bring Bortles in, but I would call fucking Big Ben.
Yeah. Well,
I would anybody.
They got an old veteran that's Josh Johnson, I think his name is Josh.
Yeah, Josh Johnson's fine for the most part. I'll get them at least something. I just don't see a situation where like this is where you get Baker. I would do anything but get Baker. I would take my shots with Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen was in your once your quarterback.
He's in the list. He's in the list. I remember seeing his name. Yeah, let me see. Actually, I've got the list here of quarterbacks that I'll just throw some names out there. It's in the random. I put the list out here. Where is it? Where is it in the news or up to? I don't remember where I put it. If it's too far, here we go. Some names that are on this list. Josh Rosen, as you mentioned. Gee, but none of these. Cam Newton's on the list. He's available.
I would get Cam Newton because at least he can run the ball.
Glennon.
I don't even like Cam.
Nate Sudfeld. Rest of these guys I don't know. Sort of vaguely, I sort of know Brett Hundley.
He was the backup for the Packers forever.
Yeah, and Joshua Dobbs. He's out there. I've heard that name.
He was a Raven, I think. Sounds familiar to me.
Anyways, there's McCarron's out there.
Yeah, AJ McCarron.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
I would sign. I would get Ryan Fitzpatrick. That'd be the first person I'd call. I'd be like, yo, we need to have some entertaining football. We just invested our future on CMC. Like, give us entertaining football.
Yeah, AJ McCarron.
Fitzpatrick's a great.
He's happy. He's got a beautiful wife, so he's all right. He doesn't, whatever he's doing now is, he's got a family and everything.
Yeah, I think Fitz would play. He ended on a bad note. He's the type of guy I think that would want to finish.
Yeah, he's he's on the commentary team on the halftime on Monday Night Football, I do believe. So he's maybe they'll talk to him tonight about it in the halftime. I'll have to watch. The Saints and the Buccaneers are playing. As I left, the Saints and the Buccaneers were in a kind of a defensive struggle a bit, but the Saints look a little better than Tom. Tom's not playing very well to start this game. Anyway, moving right along here. Other injuries here to discuss.
Injury.
Yeah, we got Ken Walker. Jammed ankle, considered questionable for Week 14 against Carolina. I noticed that there was a little bit of hot discussion on the sideline between Ken Walker and Geno Smith. I don't know what that was all about.
No idea.
Did you see it?
Guys. Yeah, I saw that clip too. I think they were just probably heated talks or whatever it may be. These guys are high testosterone men. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think you can look at Geno and not say as a guy in your team to be, to give blame. If you see how the Browns love Jacoby Brissett, I would not be surprised if they kind of love Geno the same way, in Seattle.
Yeah.
And
Geno's got you can just tell Geno's got the locker room, don't you?
Yeah. There's no way that he doesn't. He came out there and they're on a winning record. Like,
amazing. No one expected. I didn't expect it. I mean,
I'm a big DK Metcalf truther, but I thought they would lose the games.
I definitely thought it was going to be a Drew Lock, interchangeable. Like Drew Lock could be starting a few games, then Drew Lock does crap, so they have to put Geno back in. But nope, Geno took the bull by the horns, and man, he looks good. The whole year, it's like
I wish he was a little bit better in the red zone. But other than that, his game has been great.
Yeah, no complaints.
It's not as good as Case Keenum when Case Keenum was that Viking, but it's close.
Yeah,
it's very close.
And I think the big thing that in fantasy, he's not harming the value of Lockett, and like you said, 8 and 9. Those receivers,
Yeah, Lockett's value's better. Lockett's had a touchdown almost like every week. I think every time I look every Sunday, Sleeper's telling me that the guy has a touchdown. Tyler Lockett's the first guy to get a touchdown, and like in my entire roster, it's always Tyler Lockett. Yeah,
so no harm to the offense with Geno in charge for sure. But Ken Walker, questionable. We'll see how that turns out. Keep an eye on who the other backup are. I think Jones was one to look at because other injuries too. I think Travis Homer would have been the number one, but he's injured too. Treylon Burks is in the concussion protocol. Thoughts on Treylon Burks coming on a bit?
I like him. He was my favorite rookie coming into the season for the Waivers. Obviously I got that one wrong. He was one of my favorite ones. And I would say don't expect him to come back. Ever since the Tua incident this year, anytime a player comes into concussion, I just assume they're not returning the week of. I just assume it's a week after.
Yeah.
If not two, at least 1 week after.
Yeah, they're starting to keep them out a little longer. I'm getting surprised now when a player plays the following week after a concussion. That's how it is now. A player gets a concussion, you pretty much, all right, he misses the next week. But when they do show up, but all the specialists are all different. There's no standard or anything like that. It's all different specialists, and there's no league standard for it or anything. I mean, it's all just individual, of course. I guess it has to be. But the concussion protocol is one of those things we've had to deal with in recent years, but it's important. Okay, that wraps up the news hits. Unless I've missed anything from the latest goings on. Let's forge ahead with the quarterbacks. So I disagree almost completely with this QB. Well, maybe Jared Goff at QB1, but the Fantasy Pros guys who do the rankings, there was 8 experts doing the rankings this week to open things up. They usually fill it up a few more as the week rolls along, but generally the early waiver rankings are hot off the griddle is QB1 Jared Goff. He's been a good streamer, I guess.
I'm not a fan. I just can't.
You just can't do Jared Goff as number 1.
I just can't do Jared Goff. I don't. He did fine, but that was against a bad defense. Jared Goff, I just can't trust for touchdowns. I think he's had 0 games, 1 game, 2 games where he's thrown more than 2 touchdowns, and that has been in the earlier half, not the later half.
Yeah, Jamal Williams is doing a great job in there
Williams, Swift, whoever it's going to be, someone's going to punch it in.
Yeah.
It's almost guaranteed at this point.
Although he's doing no harm to Amon Ross St. Brown.
Oh yeah, it doesn't change anything for Amon. He was one of my buy low on articles a couple weeks ago, and I crapped on him a little bit, but it was for the sake of it, for just drafting purposes. But I would say Jared Goff just doesn't throw touchdowns. If your guy's not throwing 3 touchdowns, he's not someone I would say that is automatically a free streamer, because anyone can throw 2.
Yeah. Remember that these are quarterbacks that are owned in 50% or less in Yahoo leagues. Yeah. So,
but Jared doesn't run and Jared doesn't throw 3 touchdowns. So I would rather take a shot on the person next.
Mike White. You like him? Really? I like Mike White. I think he's going to start against the Bills, and I think that's kind of obvious. And Dennis and I were talking about this last week, and it was about the yips that Zach Wilson had. What are the yips? We couldn't figure out what the yips are. Well, Dennis sort of says it's sort of like, seeing ghosts, that sort of thing. But
I think it's like that, or I always think it's like someone that's drunk. Like, yip. Like they kind of hiccup or something. Mike White had 57 pass attempts this past Sunday. Like, I threw the ball 57 times.
Wow. I didn't realize that stat. I got my stats open. Huh? Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, no, I haven't looked at, it's Monday. I'm still waking up from Sunday.
Yeah. It was a bad game by Mike White, but I mean, it's at least it's there. The pass attempts are there. There's no run game to steal touchdowns on that team, really. Just sign me up for Mike White, man. I don't know. I also just think the weapons are overall better there. Not to say that Garrett Wilson or Corey Davis or Elijah Moore are better than Amon Ra. That's not the goal. But Amon Ra is just one guy, as the other team is 3 guys, with 2 being more relevant than one other, but still. So
pending tonight's game, he ends up as the QB7 this week, which is kind of impressive. Anytime you get in the top 10 of the quarterback for the week, that's kind of important. But you're right, 57 attempts and 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions and 57 passes. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he had a bad game, but I still think like there's something there.
Oh yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they match up with the Bills. Should be a good one. Ryan Tannehill is always in this list. We always go through. I don't know why Mac Jones. You're never picking up. I'm never picking up Ryan Tannehill or Mac Jones to stream. Kenny Pickett in a pinch if I had to.
I would pick up Ryan Tannehill. Not here, but I would pick him up for some streaming weeks against like bad defenses. Because Tannehill has the ability to run the ball in, right? He's only done it once this year, but in seasons past, he'll run the ball for 30 yards and get a touchdown. He does his little finger roll, even this past game, he ran the ball for 34 yards. Yeah. If he gets, extra touchdown and some decent yardage, which he averages about 2 something right now, the last few games he had 300 yards, 250, 290. It's decent because he has the possibility of running in and getting a red zone touchdown if he resumes into it.
I would rather, Kenny Pickett and Tyler Huntley are playing against each other. I'd rather have Tyler Huntley. In fact, I would put Tyler Huntley as my QB1 fantasy pro. I would definitely, if I was doing the rankings, I would put Tyler Huntley at number 1. I like him.
I think if Tyler Huntley had weapons, I would. I can't do it with Devin Duvernay and DeMarcus Robinson. I can't sit there and be like, these guys are going to put in the work for Huntley. If he had Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, I would definitely agree with you. I just don't trust the weapon.
He's got the legs almost a similar similar way to Lamar Jackson, and so he can get yardage on the ground with his, and he can extend plays,
That's true. I just wish he just had a better set of weapons, and that's all it is. I mean, the rushing is there. I mean, he ran in a touchdown last week, so he does have fantasy relevancy. The yardage was kind of piss poor, and that's my issue I have. It's like he threw, a good completion ratio of like 88% or something, but he totaled up for 180 yards. It's like, okay, cool.
Well, you talk about weapons, though, but Deshaun Jackson, he shows that he's still got it. There's some gas fumes in that tank still.
Gas fumes. That's about it. It's tough. I think Huntley's actually a good quarterback. I just wish he had just the weapons. If he had better names, if he had what Mike White had, I would say Tyler Huntley right now. He'd be my number one all day.
You would put then our next guy a little higher than him then, since he has weapons. Brock Purdy of San Francisco 49ers. He walks into a great situation as a backup. You couldn't ask for a better situation for a backup to walk into than Brock Purdy has. So there's an argument to be made that Brock Purdy is a good number one QB1 grab because of the weapons. I mean, he only has to throw short stuff.
I mean, I was watching the game live, and the way they were just moving the weapons around, which is annoying. I don't think they trust Purdy to throw over the middle, but the way they were moving Juszczyk around, the way they were moving Debo around, the way they were moving Kittle around, I think just helps him so. And CMC, I didn't even fucking say CMC, but they talk about how they move CMC around. Those easy flat touchdowns are there for him. Like he threw a flat to Juszczyk. He threw a flat to CMC. Both went for end zones. He could have got one to Debo. The only person I think that gets truly affected by Purdy is Ayuk, who isn't really used in those kind of games where he's more over the middle. But like you can see those like really cheesy, red goal line flat thrown touchdowns coming from him. So I don't know if I trust the weapons for Purdy as in fantasy relevancy, but I think you can trust Purdy above Pickett and above Mac Jones probably. I mean, the more we get into it, the further we get into the year. Because once he gets assimilated to the team better, it could be the guy. He could literally be the guy that is going to get 2 touchdowns and like 240 yards.
He could even be the guy that wins a Super Bowl. This team is Super Bowl ready with the weapons they have. They are they've got a great defense, which is I think they're the number one defense. Them and Dallas, they're both up there as defense. But this team could win a Super Bowl. There's a lot of teams in the way, like the Eagles and so forth. But he walks in. What a situation for Brock Purdy to walk into, though. Wow, he could win a Super Bowl.
It's tough. He's got it. He's got it made right now. He has a chance to be the next Heineke kind of situation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, you got Trey Lance. Actually, the question mark becomes Garoppolo now again, just like last year. We didn't know. So Garoppolo's future suddenly comes into the question again. Like this broken foot, how long does it heal? How long does he convalesce in the off season? And is he going to be ready for the OTAs and all that?
No. When I mean the next Heineke, I mean the guy that might end up playing in the playoffs.
All right, I see.
Name for himself.
Yeah. They're going to the playoffs, I think. 49ers are going to the playoffs, but I think,
he has a shot to make a name for himself and end up on a random team. And I don't think he'll take a starting role. Like, Heineke obviously didn't take a starting role this year.
No, well, he has now.
One of those Cole McCoys where he's a perpetual, forever backup. Yeah. And that you make money. Ask Chase Daniels.
Yeah, you do. Let's move on to the running backs. Top of the list, amazing. I had this guy on my team. I dropped him ages ago. Someone picked him up and used him this week. And that's Cam Akers, number 1, RB1. I'm not running out to get Cam Akers. I know he's under 50%. He definitely would be. But,
I would pick up Cam Akers.
You would,
I would pick up most of these running backs that are on the list. 3 of them. You have to get depth. Cam Akers doesn't have competition anymore. He doesn't have Darrell Henderson. He doesn't have a competent quarterback. He has nothing. So if they somehow manage to get to goal line, it's probably going to be Akers all day. I don't see this Rams team throwing a passing touchdown.
It doesn't look like it at the moment, no. But they didn't look great against the Seahawks, and usually they have the Seahawks number, especially when the Seahawks are visiting, but not this week. But nonetheless, the Rams the Rams were relevant. I guess I agree with Cam Akers being number one. Donovan Knight. Well, we're probably gonna see Michael Carter back at some point. We're definitely dropping now. I think you can safely drop James Robinson now. We now know that James Robinson is on the outside looking in fantasy. He's definitely gone. He's definitely fallen off the radar. Shame that he was good last year and the year before.
Yeah, great Cinderella story.
Yeah,
Sadly, he did not get to his second contract where he would have made real money.
Yeah. So, what do you think of Donovan Knight now? He's RB2 on the experts list for pickups this week, and I don't know. I think I'd rather look ahead and get Cook.
I think you're right. I think Donovan Knight's a nice name. I think you pick him up in regards to handcuffing your Carter. If you think his injury lingers, but I would grab James Cook. I'm a big Singletary guy, but Cook has just been getting more touches every week. The numbers have been going higher.
He's getting better, and not only and he's looking better and better and better. I have to hand it to the Bills. They brought him along in a very effective way. They didn't just stick him in like in from the cold. They worked James Cook into the offense very effectively. He's going to be a big running back, and I think in 2023 fantasy drafts he's going to be taken quite high. So
yeah, I think you have to go with just Cook.
Yeah.
I think he might lose some touchdowns to Singletary, but if you're getting 60 yards receiving and 5 catches and then another 40 on the ground, you don't care. You don't care that much. You care a lot because it's 6 points, but that's fine. You're okay with it.
A couple of other interesting names. Jared McKinnon, why can't Pacheco just take over this backfield once and for all? But no, you just can't. Like, Jerick McKinnon is in there, and Pacheco's getting the touchdowns, but and you got to own him. But I don't know. There's annoying factors in there. Jerick McKinnon, and of course you had Ronald Jones the week previous. But I don't know. Jerick McKinnon, I guess you got to own him for the PPR points you're getting, and you're getting good PPR points for Jerick McKinnon.
In my best ball teams, I have a lot of 17th round pick on Jerick McKinnon. I just think he's one of those guys that does things well enough that coaches like him. I think he's a coach's guy. Mm-hmm. We can trust we can trust Jerick to do this. We can trust Jerick to block. We can trust Jerick to be the third down guy. Like, I think he's just well liked, and sometimes that makes fantasy relevancy. It really does, and I don't think people understand that as much as they would like. We want everyone to go to the moon and be 1,000 pointers, but I think Jerick's one of those guys that is just well loved by Andy Reid. Yeah, they used him last year in the playoffs a ton, and
they will again this year. Very good. Annoying for Pacheco people, but it's okay. Both are good. Both are ownable.
Yeah, exactly.
DJ Dallas, obviously he's coming in because of the Kenneth Walker situation. That's why he's on this list.
He's a good receiving back. I don't know how much I trust him though. I think he should be lower.
5 is a bit high because of this Jones guy, who I don't really have much because he's kind of a new face in fantasy here. I'm just gonna look him up. Let's see. Sorry folks, just bear with me a moment. His name is Tony Jones. Yeah, he came from did he not come from the Saints? They picked him up from the Tony Saints, didn't they? Yes. Yeah. He came in and he looked pretty good. So
I don't know.
But I think it would
on the Saints.
Yeah.
He never looked that great. We'll see. I think Pete Carroll's such a good player coach that he gets the best out of his guys. Yeah. I can't say the same for the Saints right now, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Homer might come back. So I don't know about DJ Dallas, but but DJ Dallas is also questionable for Week 14. So
yeah, I'm not too excited about it.
Well, I am in a way because Seattle does run the ball. So this has to be assessed for fantasy.
Do they really run the ball? I mean, if you look at it, they have 2 receivers that are in top 12.
That's true, but they do. But there is value. Ken Walker was lighting it up.
Yes, Ken Walker, but still his touches were a bit low though. I think he had low touch accounts. He's not like Damian Pierce where they feed him 50 times and he doesn't get you anything. Kenneth Walker was 10 touches or 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but he's RB8 on the season here. Let's see. Let's take a look at his stats of recent years. Yeah, well, of course he was number 2, 21, then they had the bye, and then 11.
Yeah.
So he's been spotty, but definitely serviceable. He had 26 carries in the Arizona game, Kenneth Walker. That was his highest. He's had 3 games where he's been over 20 carries.
Yeah, but I think the recent weeks showed that it's kind of going down a little bit. And I don't know. Like I said,
Hard to say between game
after.
scripts and that,
Yeah.
But anyway, you do got to pick up the lead back from the Seahawks. I didn't mention who they're playing this week. They are playing. Tell you in a second.
They're playing the Panthers.
Panthers, yeah. So you gotta have a Seahawks running back. The Panthers are not good against the run. So that's good. That's good. Moving right along. Who else we got? Here's an interesting guy, Jordan Mason. He should have been picked up last week because of what he was doing and a lot with Elijah Mitchell being out.
People had a
he's getting a good.
People just kept believing in Tyrion Davis-Price, and I didn't see a reason as to why, because Jordan Mason started last week, over CMC when CMC was hurt a little bit, so it should have rolled over into this week also. And watching Jordan Mason live, that guy's a big man, and he's the guy. I would pick him up. He didn't get a lot of touches, but when he would touch the ball, he was a little bowling ball. He could have gotten a touch too.
Yeah, I think he got 7 carries on the day, I believe.
Yeah, it was like 7 for like 50 or 8 for 50.
Yeah.
No receiving, and he just ran people over. And he can easily get a red zone. He can easily get a red zone time.
He's definitely going to get a piece of the pie in that crazy offense. So you definitely got to pick up Jordan Mason this week. I would actually maybe rank him. Where would I rank him? I'd rank him definitely higher on this list. He's at RB7 on the list here. I think I would rank him ahead of Dallas, maybe.
I would rank him ahead of DJ Dallas.
Yeah, of course. I skipped over Alexander Madison. He's always on this every week, so forget about it. Forget about him. Tyler Algier, he's always on this list, and same with Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson, yeah.
No, I'm good.
We're talking Jets. Yeah, we'll leave him alone. Kenneth Gainwell, always on this list. Kenyon Drake, though. Kenyon Drake's always involved. Will he ever stop being involved in the offense?
I don't think so.
No.
I feel like you can't trust the running backs on this team.
Not really, no.
To survive. So
you got 7 carries, 29 yards this week.
Yeah.
But they're playing the Broncos, and I don't know. The Broncos seem to bog everybody down.
It's a good defense.
Yeah.
Realistically, they might be the number 1 defense if their offense, didn't make them stay on the field all day.
Yeah. True.
I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard would pass.
Yes.
Melvin Gordon pass. He's now with the Chiefs. Mike
Boone. Yes.
Yeah, we can pass. Yeah.
I think Kenneth Gainwell should be moved. Not Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, Kenyon Drake should be moved up. He's also part of the receiving game.
Yeah, that's true.
He should be right behind Dallas, I think.
Yep. Not completely agree. So, usually we have Peng's picks at this time, but no Peng's picks this week. We'll just move straight along to the wide receivers. Numero uno on the list. The experts say the number 1 guy you should go for is Corey Davis.
My buddy Corey D. I love Corey Davis. One of my favorite best ball guys. This guy's a true best ball player.
Is he?
Injured, in and out, catches 2 receptions for like 97 yards. This guy is such a monster to deal with. He's funny. And he costs you nothing every year.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. With Mike White behind center, everything has gone up for the Jets since Mike White's taken over. And you look about those 57 pass attempts, right? That's a lot of targets going on here. And everybody's going to get something. And Corey Davis is one of them. And it's a good time to have a piece of that offense, of the Jets offense with Mike White in. Everything's gone up. It's nice. Do you like Jameson? I really don't like Jameson Williams. I'm not diving on him for on the waiver wire. Are you?
The answer is no. I don't want to take a guy with Jared Goff. I don't want to take a speedster guy with Jared Goff. with the Speedster coming off an injury that was so severe that he's barely playing now, and he got one snap last week.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem there. I don't agree. Yeah, I don't agree with this this ranking. I don't see it. I mean, because they just got Shark back, and he's doing okay.
If this was Dynasty, this would be a different story. But this guy has literally no value to me right now.
Yeah. Moving right along. Nico Collins, Houston.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine because Brandon Cooks isn't happy. Brandon Cooks wanted to get traded. He didn't.
Now Brandon Cooks is injured, and Nico Collins is the guy.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything amazing out of Nico, but you can get three to five receptions, 50 yards, and possibly a touchdown. And as much as that's not game breaking, if he doesn't get the touchdown, it's at least something, right? Yeah. I can't say the same for the rest of these guys on this, but Collins is getting targeted. There's nobody else on this team.
You got to really watch the matchups with the Texans. They need somebody easy to play against. But. He's there, but WR3, I don't know. I think I would prefer maybe some guys that are down the list here a little bit. What do you think of Kadarius Toney?
I don't know why he's on the list.
I picked him up and I started him right away, and he was out after one target. He was out of the game, and we haven't seen him since. And this guy he's just milking the injury or something. I don't know. Doesn't want to play. I don't think if he was that good, would the Giants have, let him go that easy? Would they have let him out the building that easily? I don't think so.
I think if he was a headache, yes. But he is a first-round pick, and I've seen first-round picks stay on teams forever just because of the capital.
But they didn't. But the Giants didn't feel the need to hang on to him. Now he's on KC, and now he's got the hamstring thing going on again.
And he's playing behind Kelsey and Juju, who are team players.
Yeah.
And he's playing behind McKinnon now at this point. He's playing behind everybody.
Yeah, and so I would rather have his teammate who is next on the list, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'd rather have him. He's getting the deep shots.
Yeah, I don't like Scantling.
No, I don't particularly like him, but I'm saying in comparison to Toney.
He's at least getting targets. He still got you 70 yards last week. He got you 50, 60 a week before that. That is almost infinitely more than what Kadarius Toney's done for you in his entire career.
Yeah. And here's where also you could almost swap the Detroit players. I would rather have Chark where Jameson Williams is and put Jameson Williams is where Chark is, like at WR6. I'd swap them out. I'd rather have Chark than Williams.
Yes, I think so. I'd actually rather have the guy that's the two players over. That's on our list. I'd rather have the wide receiver 8 on the list than some of the guys they have here.
Yeah, I can't understand why Isaiah McKenzie and Mac Hollins, like you say, why they are so low.
I mean, all three of them. Those two plus Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell, I can understand more. Mac Hollins and McKenzie, they have definitive roles. I think Mac Hollins is the wide receiver 2 on the team that is always playing from behind generally.
Yeah.
And he's not getting the same, eyes on him that the other guys are going to get.
That's right.
I would rather have Mac Hollins.
And, he's in a prime position with Renfrow remaining out. So, it's perfectly good.
In his last 3 games, he's averaged about 5 receptions, 5, 4, and 6. So he's about 5 receptions per game. That's fine. I'll take those. I'll take that from a guy that is super on the waiver right now.
Yeah, that's flex. And then, of course, you mentioned Paris Campbell, who definitely seems to be the number one he wears. He is number one, but that's his number. But he's also the number one over 11, which is Pittman. But he's definitely the guy on the Colts to own. I think you're completely right about putting these 3 guys. These guys are way too low for me.
Yeah, I don't know why Toney, Marquez, and Shark are ahead of these 3 guys. Yeah. All 3 of those guys don't generally get much receptions or targets or been even on the field. These other 3 guys have been on the field, get targets, get receptions, have had big games. I mean, Mac Hollins and Campbell both had 100-yard games and a touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It may be that maybe the experts are putting Jameson Williams so high because that they figure that Detroit are going to test drive him for the rest of the season,
But it's Jared Goff throwing the ball,
Jared Goff's not that bad. Come on, give Jared Goff some. You're far too down on Jared Goff, man. I think so.
Jared Goff is not fun to watch. Jared Goff, to put it this way, Hawkinson left and just had a much better career all of a sudden. Like he joined another team and has just been doing amazing. Like and that speaks a lot to me about what kind of quarterback Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff left his former team and they won a Super Bowl immediately.
That's true.
What does that tell you?
But I don't know. Jared Goff was involved in that. You remember that game, the big game in 2018 that when he was still with the Rams and him and Mahomes went at it, was 54-51. It was supposed to be played in Mexico, but Mexico's field was roughed up, and so they had to move the game.
That game was a good game, and a lot of that came down to Gurley. And I remember watching that game should have ended a lot earlier because Jared Goff kept underthrowing the ball. It was kind of bad. Like he was throwing these deep shots, and I remember watching him go, "Oh, like that would be a game."
He won the game. The Rams won that game
earlier, much earlier. And that game was carried by Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley, if there's ever been a running back MVP since AP, it should have been Todd Gurley that year. Because the minute he stopped playing, they got knocked out of the Super Bowl.
I'm not sure if Todd Gurley, I'm not sure if, I don't know. I might have to, like that commercial where you throw the flag, I might have to look up the stats for that game and see if in fact, I'm going to do it now. Let's throw the flag like they do in that commercial. You seen that commercial?
I would watch the game and really watch Jared Goff throw the ball. It's actually interesting how often he got bailed out and how often he had to get carried by just the rest of that team.
Okay. I'm going to throw the flag on this, on that game, the big, kind of a famous game, actually, no? Isn't it? Well, famous Monday night game.
Games ever played, honestly. It was an amazing game.
Let's see, 2018, I think it was.
Yeah, so Gurley doesn't have that much on that stat game, but Gurley has carried that man in his career, though. Because the minute that team lost Gurley for the Super Bowl run, they were never the same. Jared Goff just couldn't do it anymore.
Okay, I got the game here. Jared Goff, 413 yards, 4 touchdowns, sacked 5 times, no interceptions, quarterback rating of 117, Mahomes, 478 yards passing. His rating was also 117 and change. So, I mean, Todd Gurley, you got 12 attempts, 55 yards.
Yeah, for that specific game, he didn't put up a lot. That was towards the end of the season. I think he was kind of losing it.
Yeah.
But if you actually watch the game, some of the throws just aren't that great. The numbers add up, but they were not great throws. There's a lot of very... that game should have ended. That game shouldn't have actually gone to overtime. Actually, Jared Goff should have won that game early.
Well,
I mean, they won. Don't get me wrong, but they could have won a whole lot earlier.
Anyways, we're getting sidetracked with this argument over Jared Goff. I don't think he's that bad. You think he's bad? We'll leave it at that. We'll agree to disagree on that. All right. Meanwhile,
won a game from 3 years ago too.
Come on, drop it. I'm dropping it, so you can too. All right, here we go. Julio is playing tonight, so. I don't know. I think he's kind of a pickup for tonight. You needed him. I don't know. Julio, I think the end is near. I think the end is past, maybe.
I don't know why people are using Julio at this point. This is just weird.
Yeah.
It's just weird. This name value. The Bucks aren't even the same Bucks as last year.
Terrace Marshall, of course, is on this list often. And, I don't know. Up and down. So, Carolina Panthers. Can't trust. But the guy I really want to talk about with you is Odell Beckham Jr. And he's on this list. And he is WR12 free agent. What do you think?
I think if you're relying on this guy, it's the same issue I have with Jameson Williams. Severe injury late in the season. The only difference is this man's older, so a little bit more veteran savvy. So there's a chance he can come into play. But I don't know. How bad is your team that you're relying on Odell Beckham in free agency?
I don't know. Well, the Cowboys seem to think they need him.
But still, I would use some tight ends over him.
Michael Irvin came in. Michael Irvin, he does the NFL Network. He's on the chat show, the Game Day show, and he had a column about Odell Beckham Jr. and I thought it was kind of interesting. He says that the Cowboys have to think about, there's a line between accommodation and integration, and you can't get Odell Beckham in and accommodate him. He's got to integrate. And I thought it was an important point because right now they've got a good locker room going. And if you start, coddling Odell Beckham, it could affect the locker room in Dallas.
Oh, easily. Some guys are head cases. Odell just got kicked off a flight recently.
Yeah, I thought that was a real Antonio Brown move there. That was definitely out of the Antonio Brown playbook, that. For sure.
I just don't know what you're doing. I would not sacrifice my locker room for a guy short of a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we always joke about Terrell Owens and stuff in real life. But, like, Terrell Owens was a Hall of Fame player. So sometimes you just dealt with it. Odell's not one of those guys.
No, he's not.
Brown is probably the closest thing. And even now I'm questioning if that's even logically correct,
I don't know. It's the same thing. You get these guys like Des Bryant, these... And they just don't. Like Julio Jones is a different case. I don't think Julio Jones kind of fits the diva thing as much. I think it's probably Brady.
Doesn't. I think he had his hand. He held his hand dead. He had his head down a long time. Played a great game. Played a great career. I mean, the only time you ever heard anything was right at the end of his tail end, and that was on a news show. And that was it. He's been a great player, great locker room guy. You gotta love him. I love Julio.
Last guy on the list, Robert Woods. Boy, has he really fallen off the radar lately. We never talk about him. The forgotten man in fantasy, Robert Woods. Nothing really much more to say. He deserves WR13. I guess it's just barely, right?
I'll tell you now, I wouldn't add him. I can't. I like Bobby Trees, and I was a big fan of him out of Buffalo.
Bobby Trees.
ACL tear got him.
Right. Okay, that pretty much wraps up. Before we wrap it up, anything else we want to talk about on this list? Anything to add?
For the receivers?
Or can we move on?
I just think the rankings are really piss poor. I think we have a lot of guys, Mackenzie Hollins, Campbell, even Julio at this point, that should be higher up. Corey Davis is the only thing I think they got correct at him at the top.
Yeah, it's a pretty mixed bag here. I would definitely rank these. I think their wide receiver rankings are a mess compared to the other positions. I mean, the other positions, they're a little messy. They just need some tweaking. But their wide receiver list really this week, the Fantasy Pros waiver rankings for wide receivers, a mess. Apart from, like you say, Corey Davis. Yeah, he's fine at number one.
So, like, if you look at Williams and Tony, and let's say you picked him up, you're like, I'm going to pick up these guys. I'm going to take a chance. You're not going to start them. You're not. And let's say they have a big game around week 15. Are you confident enough to use them in your playoffs, week 16 and 17, to get you through?
Exactly. We're not stashing guys anymore. We can't stash players. You're exactly right. This is not the time for stashing.
Last year, where he was really putting up for a couple weeks now. The couple weeks you're gonna need to be like 4 weeks straight, and they have to be very convincing. And it has to be and a good matchup. So it has to be convincing games and a good matchup.
Yep,
tough for me.
Yeah, so their wide receiver rankings, they're just a total mess. It's really bad. Apart from Corey Davis, as you mentioned, that's fine. He's fine. Tight ends, kind of important, especially for I'm looking for somebody. I think the guy I'm probably going to target is the sixth guy on this list is Daniel Bellinger for me. He's back from that eye injury, looked good with Daniel Jones. I think that there's not. Basically, he's benefiting because everybody's injured. Golladay was out again, but I don't think Galladay's any factor. I think Bellinger still is going to get the ball.
I like Bellinger.
So I think
he's a lot.
I would rank him higher on this list, probably ahead of Dulcers, because I just can't stand the Denver offense. Evan Ingram, I dropped him like an idiot, but he's well deserved.
Are you an idiot for that?
Well, he scored, and it always feels bad when you drop a guy and then he scores in the very next game, which he did. So not good. And I know we didn't talk about any. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have any issues. He was out for the game for a little bit. Came back and I don't know. Yeah,
scared me a little bit.
But who would you like to talk about on this list here? We got
a
lot of the usual subjects, a lot of the usual suspects on this list. But anybody you like here?
Just Bellinger. I think there's not any real weapons on this team. Bellinger was the guy for a week straight. I actually started him over Kyle Pitts, and he paid off. He helped me win my week. I think if he gets past that eye issue, I think he's the main guy here. The only other person I'd rank up there is Dulcich. He has a clear role. and his competition is thin. Even Saquon doesn't catch passes on it. So that tells me a lot. That tells me that this guy has a chance to be fantasy relevant. And he's trusted, like he's coming off an injury and they shoved him back out there. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty serious eye injury too, but
yeah.
Playing means money, right? The more you play, the more money you get. So
exactly. So I think he's the guy you have to believe that he has a very consistent role, and that it's going to be good. I think he came back and he did what he was supposed to do. Nothing groundbreaking, but he's possibly also a red zone guy too.
Yeah. You're a Jets guy now. I think we're all Jets people now. But Tyler Conklin, I would put Conklin ahead. I could easily see Conklin at the top of this list.
I could see it. I don't know how I feel about it though. It's just not much consistency going on over there with him, right? The reason I like Bellinger more than a lot of these is that Bellinger had 5 receptions coming off an injury. Conklin only has 5 receptions in the last 2 games. And
it's a good point.
And it's 50 yards for one, and the other is 9. But Bellinger came in, put 5 for 20.
Yeah.
And he was before injury, etc. I think this is Joe Flacco. I would probably boo on Conklin. Mike White it's Mike White, and he targets his receivers. He targets his running back. So
yeah,
I just don't see it yet.
That's fair. That's a fair comment. I picked up Conklin anyway in one league, so I was kind of hoping for more. But I kind of picked him sort of on spec a little bit, sort of.
I think you can. I just one of those things that I don't know if I'm certain. I feel more certain with Dulcich. I feel more certain with Bellinger. Possibly even Evan Ingram. But Ingram's the 4th option on this team, and I don't feel great about it. That's what I feel about Conklin. He feels like a 4th option. Dulcich and Bellinger feel like a 2nd option on the team.
Yeah. If I was still doing spec ads at this time of the season, which you're not stashing guys to stash and see. I have a little bit of interest in this Okonkwo guy of the Titans who's on this list. He piqued my interest a little bit the week previous, and Tennessee doesn't really have a proper tight end that's catching the ball, but actually they have nobody they're only second from the bottom from the Bears in passing offense, but Okonkwo I kind of kept a watchful eye on this Okonkwo guy. He's a guy that's, I don't know, he might come along next season. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I don't know. Tennessee's definitely got to up their passing offense. They're, like I say, they're number 31, just ahead of the Bears passing this season.
I mean, with Okonkwo, the upside for him is that, I think he's a young player. Is it his rookie year? I want to say it's his rookie year, maybe his 2nd year.
I can't remember.
And he has back-to-back games. I mean, it can mean anything for tight end, but he looks as if he's outplaying Austin Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what I saw.
Tannehill, what he wants to be, is very, very efficient, and will take the checkdowns. So that's what you want in your tight ends, the checkdown guy that's easy. No one's really paying attention to me. So if he does it a 3rd week straight, I would pick him up now and just hope that he does it 3 weeks straight. He does it 3 weeks straight, this guy might be on the number 1 list next week.
Yeah. Anybody else on the tight ends? A lot of the usual suspects on the tight ends. We usually see the name. Usually see these. Dennis and I see these names week in, week out. Hunter Henry, for example, he's always on this list. Somewhere around 4 or 5 or 6. Hunter Henry. I guess he's not a bad streamer, and I guess fantasy playoffs, you kind of got to look at those matchups and see if you want to pick up a guy if you think you're going to make it to the round after and so forth. But
I would say surprisingly he's not on this list. Logan Thomas is 9% owned right now. I would consider him, and I always pitch on John Bates. John Bates had a really good chemistry with Heineke last season, his rookie year. And we did see him just get a touchdown recently, so it's been kind of nice. I don't know how much I trust the Commanders, but it's another random option that just comes to mind. Maybe not correctly comes to mind, but he does. And then weirdly enough, maybe even the 2nd tight end for Seattle. Whoever the 2nd guy is, either it's Parkins or Will Disley.
Yeah.
They use their tight ends quite a bit. And,
they do. They never make the list, though, do they? That's funny.
No. They, randomly do something. But here's the thing. They're not doing a ton. And then I would even say Brevin Jordan, right? Brevin Jordan just came off as one of his best games this past
That's
week.
right. That's true.
So, who knows? Jordan Atkins and Brevin Jordan have always been fighting each other for touches.
It just seems like after Andrews and Kelsey, we're always debating who to pick up for tight end, or Hawkinson. But there is one guy that we didn't talk about, and I think we should, is actually Jelani Woods of the Colts. When the eye test for me is, I was thinking, where's number 80? I'm looking on. I'm watching the game last night. I'm thinking, what, is he injured? The number 80 guy? You sort of, they sort of have a presence. There's a guy who has a presence, and I think that Jelani Woods, he has a presence on that offense that they don't. I don't know whether don't the coaches watch the film and see what we see? I mean, Jelani Woods looks like a guy, looks like a star to me.
I agree with you on that. I think that if the coaching was competent there, which I actually, you've heard me yip about how much I hate the Colts right now. If their coaching was competent, I could see Jelani Woods being a guy. But I actually think that organization right now is probably one of the worst ones in the league. And not in the sense of how they handle business, but of how they're trying to win a ring. I think they're doing it in the worst possible way I've ever seen it. Right. They are just absolutely terrible. And I don't trust Jelani Woods because that organization is so terrible. Right. Probably the best way to put it. I mean, this is an organization that has 5 different quarterbacks in the last 4 years. Like, come on.
Yeah, true. Right. So we're getting near the end of the show. So let's go through and see, go back through the list here, the quarterbacks. My number 1 would be, instead of Jared Goff, as much as I like Jared Goff, I put him at number 2. My number 1 pickup for quarterback would be Tyler Huntley on this list. QB60s. I would put him at QB1. Who would you put?
Mine would be Mike White.
Mike White?
I think the weapons are too good.
Fine. And for running back, I would take James Cook as my RB1. He'd be the guy I would pick. Not Cam Akers. They've got Cam Akers. I would go James Cook number 1.
I agree. I take James Cook. I think you can't beat guaranteed touches. Like, guaranteed good touches. You can't beat that. Yeah. He won't get the end zone every week, but 15 PPR points is 15 PPR. Who would you take first off the board? Do you like wide receiver? Who do you like? Number 1. Corey Davis. He's my guy. I gotta get Corey Davis. But I would rank Mac Hollins number 2. I think
I would rather take. I want a piece of that Buffalo offense. I would take Isaiah McKenzie if he's available.
That's fair. I just like they're calling Mac Hollins the poor man Gabriel Davis, and it's like the funniest thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just seems like him and Gabe Davis are battling it out for the number 2. So, the tight end, I think we both agree. But I would put Bellinger number 1. Me on the tight end.
I would put Bellinger and then Dulce second. I think you can't discount their situation. They have one of the best situations right now, where they're like the only guy left on this team.
Right. So we've reached the end of the program. Now, we were going to talk about a little bit about fantasy receipts at the end of this podcast. Kind of wanted to talk about, first of all, why don't you tell our listeners what fantasy receipts is and what they're about, and why there's a love-hate relationship with them in fantasy circles.
So fantasy receipts is a Twitter account that will quote tweet other fantasy analysts or content creators, basically calling them out for a bad call. The original premise was to call out lazy calls. If I was to say something like, Jameson Williams is the number 1 receiver, you should be drafting him, and I left it blank, they would call you out on it. Now they're kind of calling everybody out on it. No matter what your purpose is, they get engagement. But that's what they do. I've been a fan to an extent, and the reason why we bring them up is we were having discussions about reseeding players and people that were just steaming up players this season. A lot of guys that shouldn't have been drafted as high as they were, only because of hype. And that's how fantasy receipts came up for us.
But we like hype trains in fantasy. We like the hype. That's part of the thing that we do. We get into hype.
I love hype when it makes sense. I'm not the kind of guy that wants to sit there if a roulette is hits green over and over and over, over and over, and you're like, well, see, hit green 6 times. You got to keep hitting the house on green. I would say, hey man, like it's very improbable because it's 1 out of 30 something numbers or 100, 1 out of 50 numbers on the roulette. I'm one of those guys that's just more practical about it. And a lot of it, I think this year got out of hand. Like, you see a lot of guys that were like juiced up, right? Gabe Davis is one of them. Michael Pittman, another one. That's my biggest talking point with Michael Pittman. Amon Ra, even up until TJ Hawkinson got traded away, was a guy that got juiced up and kind of let people down. Jerry Jeudy, another guy that got juiced up and let people down.
Yeah, he did. He got juiced up. I fell into that trap. Okay. You got me there because I was kind of, well, it was only because Russell Wilson was coming to the Broncos and I thought he would, sort of elevate, kind of like do a Mike White,
I've just never been I love Russ as a real player, real life guy, but as an actual fantasy player, like he confuses me sometimes.
I didn't know he was so washed. Well, he's not washed. Okay, faded. He's fading.
I think Pete Carroll did a lot more for him than people believe.
You think so? Well, yeah, you have an argument there with Geno Smith. Yeah, you definitely have an argument there.
I mean, you got to think about Pete Carroll has made a lot of stars out of like 5th round guys and 4th round guys and 6th round guys. I mean, the Legion of Boom was built off of just late guys.
Well, I think that had a lot to do with the defensive coordinator at the time, who was the guy who was fired from the Falcons. What was his name? Forget it. I forget his name. Anyways, yeah, he was the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks at the time.
And he became the Falcons coach.
Yeah, he became Falcons coach. He didn't do too well, but he.
But that was Dan Campbell.
Was that Dan Campbell?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Oh, Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn. That's the name. God. Dan Quinn. Yeah.
My mind's all about Dan Quinn.
That's all right. I do it all the time.
Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn. Close enough. There's the Dan in it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the reason we bring up fantasy receipts is we were talking about some players and all these guys that get juiced up, but it also led to another conversation about, tandems. And is the Buccaneers tandem really as good as the tandems we have today, right? That was your question?
Yeah.
And I think the one thing you had brought up is that they just are not as good as Waddle and Hill, Diggs and Gabe Davis, which I will say I think Godwin and Evans is better than Diggs and Davis at this point. But Chase and Higgins is another one I think you brought up that was a really good one too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue we've had with Evans and Godwin is that they were never really on the field together, right? Like Godwin was always injured. The quarterback play was never always that great. Waddle and Hill right now have Tua. Diggs and Davis have Josh Allen. Chase and Higgins have Joe Burrow. So It's just last year we got a good touch of it though. Remember, one of the best offenses last season was Tom Brady with Godwin and Mike Evans.
Yeah.
And Gronk and whatnot. So I don't think I would say they're any worse than the two, like of the other pairs. I think there's worse duos than Evans and Godwin.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley were kind of technically not a great tandem. I mean, they were kind of split from age, and they were never on the field together either.
Yeah. That's another thing too. We've never talked about Mike Ridley going to the Jaguars too. It's something that Dennis and I haven't even touched on. That was one of the big things that happened during in the run up to the trade deadline. That was one of the big ones that sort of kind of fell a little bit under the radar a little bit. I mean, it was talked about at the time, and then nobody's really talking about that. It's kind of a big thing. Mike Ridley moving.
Oh, Calvin Ridley, yeah.
Or Calvin Ridley, pardon me.
It's gonna make a really good team though if he gets back to shape, back to form.
Yeah.
Definitely a tough call though. I think that's a really tough one to see what's actually gonna happen. But I would say that the tandems just aren't as. I think they're still strong.
I think there's a little bit of debate, like whether dynasty people should trade him or what.
I would trade Evans actually. I mean, Evans is about 30 years old. He's probably gonna get a new quarterback next year that isn't Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I think I would move on. If I can get a first or a second or a first at least, I would move on from Evans. It's gonna feel bad, and he belongs in a dynasty football Hall of Fame of some sort. But man, it's gonna happen. Guys like him that are bigger, who rely on their physique to win a lot of their fights.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the same waning of like with Evans. I'm starting to see that same sort of a little bit waning thing with Keenan Allen as well. Keenan Allen wasn't. He was getting a lot of targets and he was catching balls, but he doesn't look quite as sharp as we're used to seeing. He's got a good quarterback too,
I mean, the injuries kind of piled up.
That's true. I'll give him that. I'm kind of going light with him because of that. But
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It's also an age thing. He's a guy that's just older.
yeah, and he had a lot of injuries early in his career too. So, but those things always just catch up with you.
Yeah, I'm always a little confused on that. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of these good tandems out there. I mean, was there another one we could come up with? Amari Cooper, Don Peoples Jones.
Who?
Amari Cooper and Don Peoples Jones.
Well, yeah. Oh, that's the other thing that we should finish the show on this. Your report card on Deshaun Watson. We gotta hear it. I gotta hear your take. What's your initial reaction of?
I will say that the fantasy community tries too hard to big brain everything. It was actually kind of funny. If you didn't follow, everyone said Deshaun Watson's going to have the best revenge game possible. And then the other half said Deshaun Watson hasn't played football in 2 years. Nick Chubb's going to have his best game. Neither of those things came true.
Neither of them.
I thought neither of those things came true. And I think that's the funniest thing. I will say, though, Watson was bad.
Yep.
As expected. Anything you don't do for 2 years, you're not going to be good at it. And I get it. He may have practiced, etc. But the Browns, and one of the things that people made fun of the Browns before is why do they keep using him? The Browns made the right move by giving him as much real-time play as possible. If you lose to the Texans, you win to the Texans, who cares? You already know you're the Browns and you're not going to win the Super Bowl. So you need this guy to get as much reps against real-time players as possible, right? Not practice situations.
Yep.
So they used them and ensure the defense carried them to a win. But if I don't think you can crap on the Browns for doing that. No matter how you feel about Deshaun, doesn't matter. It's just from and we talked about this earlier, from a organizational standpoint, you have to make Deshaun Watson be out there for all 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Because if he's not, then he's not going to get real reps. We make fun of Josh McDaniels for this, but when he said that he let Josh Jacobs run the ball so much in the Hall of Fame game because he needed him to have he needed to see him in an actual game, right? He's like, it's different when you're running practice.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? And I admitted him. I was like, fine. He called it. Josh Jacobs having the best season of his career. I'm going to run that same idea for Deshaun Watson. They needed to have him run real life scenario. And Deshaun Watson sucks right now. He sucks bad. Really
bad. I mean, the whole offense just went totally tanked. No offensive touchdowns. And it was a weird score too for no offense. It was all defense scoring, and not one offensive score. It was remarked on again and again by Scott Hansen on the Red Zone telecast, and it was absolutely stunning that they had to beat Houston with defense. They won't be able to do it with another team. No chance. I mean, of course, Cleveland, they're playing out the string. We know that. But I mean, we had such high hopes for some of these offensive weapons. I even kind of thought, with Deshaun Watson in here, we kind of got to look at guys like David Bell now and things like that, rookie guy, maybe Deshaun Watson has a connection. Well, that sort of went out the window.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys who drafted him in the best ball tournaments, thinking he was going to come in at the end of the season and light it up and be like this game winner. And here's the thing. It's very possible, right? First game back, he's going to work through the kinks. Who knows? Maybe by week 16, 17, he's going to be close to form. Do I believe he will be? Likely not, just because it's hard to build chemistry like that. And I was never the biggest Watson guy because I think he got really lucky with DeAndre Hopkins. But he does run the ball. I'm just curious what his shape is 2 years later, and he's mentally probably not there. This guy,
and Tom Brady averaging 4.5 yards per attempt, his worst in the first half in the last couple.
Sorry, some reason my thing went off pause. Anyway, go on.
But so he went through something I would say is borderline traumatic. I think we can agree that it's something that's probably going to be on his mind for the next year or so. I don't know if I could play or go to work and be 100% having the kind of stuff that he went through, accusations, media coverage, people saying them threats. Someone expected to come back and be amazing. I don't know. I find that kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, and also speaking of threats, so fantasy took it on the chin too from when Twitter kind of exploded when Deshaun Watson was coming back this week. Fantasy obviously always, when in these situations, fantasy always, they always got to take a dig at fantasy because we don't, we sort of build a partition between off-field stuff and what we're doing. In fantasy, we're interested in numbers and points and things like that. We're not really interested in that other stuff. We care about it, but Twitter sort of gives us a little bit of a, they kind of make an issue of it with us as well. So we get lumped into it as well as what people say on Twitter about Deshaun Watson. Do you think he's got? Do you think he's going to have trouble gaining the locker room? That's the other thing too.
I don't think he's going to have trouble. I think he's going to have a little bit of trouble because Jacoby Brissett was well loved from what I've seen. I'm not in the locker, so I have really no idea. But from what it seems like and how the coach talked to him right at the end, they love Jacoby. But I will say that Deshaun Watson has a lot going for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's because he's an African-American quarterback. Teams wanted to join him. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney has gone on record saying, like, I want to go wherever Deshaun went.
Right.
Like, I want to play, I don't think he lost the locker room. And a lot of the men's club type of situations, they're probably going to kind of agree with them, Not to get into all that, but I just think that they're going to have their opinions as rich guys that probably do try to get taken advantage of all the time. That they probably just going to be like, oh, I totally believe you, whatever the situation is. I think he's fine. Because if they didn't believe him, you would have seen a bigger backlash from the Browns team by now, way before this.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't think I think it's just taking time. It just might take a little time for him to, knock off the...
Physically get right, mentally get right.
I just didn't think he was going to be this bad.
I mean, true, but... look at this year. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look how bad he is.
Well, they're different. Come on. Apples and oranges here.
No, but some guys that have been consistently playing the last few years are pretty bad. Look at Russell Wilson. He's doing terrible. Like, who knows at this point how bad this quarterback can really be all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I still hold out hope for Deshaun Watson, but man, he's really got to turn it around the next game. Who the Browns play next week? We're looking at are they the Ravens? Is it? No, the Ravens are playing the Steelers.
Oh yeah, they're playing the Steelers. The Browns play the Bengals. I know it's a division rival.
Yeah, so that is a game where he's got to step it up. That's for sure. Yeah. And that'll be the real test. I mean, the Texans were kind of good for a sort of in-season preseason game in a way. So, but we'll see. Davis, it was great having you on this podcast. It always is a pleasure.
Of course. I like joining in and doing my segments. It's been a highlight of my season this year.
Oh, that's great. We look forward to having your segment next week, and we read your articles. You do the trades on fantasy. Of course, trading is over now. So now, what are you doing?
I am taking over from the waiver wire. Our buddy Herms is moving on to Draft Shark.
All right.
As a full-time writer, which we're very, very excited for him. He has, to make it in the business is, everyone's dream. So he's going to go do that.
Right.
And I will be taking over his waiver wire articles at week 16 and 17.
That's cool. Right. And of course, you can check out my blurb view. That is every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time after the Friday news dump. So you can check out the blurb view on Fridays. So thank you for joining us on the Fantasy Edge. For Davis Peng, I'm Richard Savill. See you next week, folks, and have a very happy week 14.